Last week was one heck of a great time with our live call-in show. So cool to have our listeners calling in with their questions. And this week, well, we may not be live, but we're still going to be answering listeners' questions. And let me tell you what, the questions today on scenarios in solo versus partner situations is, well, let's just say, pull that pick and shovel out, y'all, because we're going to be digging for gold on this one. So, my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gillia. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy our show. And as always, for those blue-collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, and joining me tonight's crew, that's right, we've got the leader of the Venezuelan Mafia in the house. That's Luis Gonzalez. We got the Northern Don of the Mafia, Manano Glateron.
He's the sounder.
The legend R.C. Knox from Cuesta, New Mexico in the house. And that's right, WWJGD and your elk hunting coaches, the Ninja, Leroy, Chavez from Cimarron, New Mexico. All of them are in the house tonight. What's happening, guys?
What's going on, amigo?
Ready to rock and roll.
Ready to rock and roll. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, we had the first person this week asking for ElkBros Mafia t-shirts, man.
It's coming. It's coming, fellas. It's coming, fellas. We're going to design it up. Y'all hold your horses.
All I know is this, man. It's just going to be one shirt, and it's going to be like a small or something. So
we better build them XXX so they can fit over their big heads.
Oh, and speaking of legends, Legend now has his own website getting ready to happen at CimarronSilver.net, man. So
wow.
CimarronSilver.net.
Check that out. It's awesome, dude. It's awesome. Joe did an awesome job.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
We're still hooking some stuff up, but man, I tell you, he's looking sweet there, man.
Awesome, RC.
Legend
Joe,
is
Joe, is there a link on our page to get to his page?
Not yet, because we've been building until we know that all the inner workings are going. We haven't popped that up yet. So
Gotcha.
by the time people hear this, though, most likely we're all set to go, man. So
cool.
And because we're actually going to be, it's going to be old news, but we're going to be at Western Hunt Fest this weekend. Me, RC, and Chav are going to be there. We're so looking forward to that. And if you haven't gotten involved with Western Hunt Fest, man, they have the Pack Out Challenge, they have the calling competition, seminars. Man, it's just a great time over there. An incredible 3D shoot too. So that's a good thing to go check out. Last time, y'all, we had our first ever live caller show. All right. Yeah. All right. So I don't know. How did folks feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, the feedback that I've gotten has been positive, Joe. Like I said, I felt like, I wanted to answer everybody's question. That's kind of the thing that we want to get to, is so we can get to all these questions when they call in. So y'all bear with us. We're working through a little system here of how to do that, and we can get a little faster at answering questions. But I think, like we're doing tonight, will be a spinoff off of that, right, Joe?
All y'all look like deer in headlights, man. So it's kind of like, live caller show? I don't know. How'd you feel about it, Luis?
I liked it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, there was just a lot of us.
Yeah, there were. Yeah.
Just a lot of us. But I like it. I mean, I think it's cool because at the same time, I mean, the pros of having a lot of us is that you got a lot of different levels of knowledge and experiences and people specialize in different things, and we could kind of cover most of the questions. The downside is just simply just kind of trying to decide who and when and how we're going to answer the question in an orderly manner, right? But
Yeah.
Well,
that was
in
pretty
our
cool.
group, in such a grand fashion, we love to chase rabbits and stuff like that, tell stories, so it can get to be long too. I mean, we want to try to
Right.
keep these
That's the
hour and
point,
a half,
Beto.
2 hours, right?
I mean, it was amazing, but I think we should decrease a little bit the length of our answers because in order to cover more ground.
Well, and it's my nature to run off on a story. Talk, fellas. I can talk a leg off a wooden Indian, at the
We
end of
said
the day.
we all need to shorten the answer.
Yeah.
You didn't have to take it, personally, even though we all know it was you.
Oh, no doubt. Hey, look, like I said, I can talk for everybody else, so for sure. But I love telling stories, and I think a lot of our listeners love our stories too. But when we're doing something as influential as answering listeners' questions and stuff, I think that needs to be kind of the focus,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But I think, it's just one of those deals. We had multiple things going on. We had people on the actual, live that were texting, and we had the people calling in. And so we want to hear it from y'all, man. You guys that are listening to the show, this is about you. If you like the idea of the live call in, let us hear something from you. And
Joe, they can send a message through the YouTube.
yeah, they can text their questions in
because
during live.
people calling, they probably get discouraged. If we don't answer the phone, so they can text and send
And
us a
there's
question.
also another option, Manano, so they can actually call the live number that we have, because it goes live when we're on the show. When we're not on the show, they can call that number and leave questions or comments for us that we can actually answer on the show.
Right.
Luis, do you know what that number is?
505-585-2573.
That number is
505.
585
2573.
Yeah.
3 like number, not 3 like where you put the tree stand. 3.
Yeah. So if people
guys.
have those questions, they can go ahead and call ahead of time and get those, and we can actually hear those, put those in. We might even be able to play that, their actual recorded question. So look, we have some kinks to work out. We're hunters. We're not, a lot of this is new to us, and we're trying to get it. We're trying to make it happen, trying to involve everybody. And what I'm hoping is people, when you do that, you can even aim it at somebody. You can go, Chav, what I need to know from you, man. And so
I just want to know that. No, I just want everybody to know that Eric Aragon did not pull one over on us. We knew.
Yeah, we knew it was Eric.
We knew that was the Gila Ridge runner calling in, giving us all kind of grief.
that was one of the best things of the night, man.
Oh,
No
yeah, no doubt.
Can I get me some of them Duplantier leg warmers?
I love it.
Oh, that was awesome. The one thing that I did get from some people was they were like, man, I missed the live show, the live call-in. Said, how do we know when you're going live? Okay, here you go, y'all. Number one, you can go to our website, join our elk camp, and when we put out our email or our blast letters letting everybody know, you'll get that information with the phone number, and you'll get it ahead of time. So just go to our website, scroll down the bottom and say join our camp. Okay, click on that and go ahead and register for our emails. The other thing you can do is you can go to our ElkBros YouTube channel, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, so that way when we do go live, you get a notification that we are. Okay? And last but not least, follow us on Instagram, because we always put a post on Instagram that we're going to be going live. So that's the best way to find out.
Sweet.
Huge announcement. 1 week, y'all. 1 week. The Hunt with the ElkBros giveaway ends basically I put we there. Not
One week.
One week.
1 week.
1 week from now. Y'all, midnight, May 9th. It's over, and we are going to be going live on May 10th. Mark your calendars. That's May 10th. It will be, gosh, if we get on, what do we do, 7:30 last time? So we'll be on 7:30 Mountain Time. That's 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. That's going to be 6:30 on the Pacific. We're going live on our YouTube channel, and we will be giving away over $40,000 in prizes for those people entered.
Coming up quick.
It's coming up fast, man. And if
Don't
you,
be dawdling around. Y'all get your entries in. It's the best odds ever to draw a New Mexico tag for sure. And come hunt with the legend, the Mafia, Big O, and Big Joe. I mean, all of us are going to be in camp ready to rock and roll.
look, you've got the elk hunt with us. You've got a $28,000 camper, but you can win a hog hunt with the boys in South Texas. We've got initial ascent packs. We've got calls from Wapiti River, from Slayer, from Carlton, from ElkBros, from Game Changer. We got Bow Hitch. We've got Western Fly. We've got a ticket to Elk Shapes Camp. You know, we have so many. Oh, we have a compound from Hit or Miss, man, that's going to be on there. I mean, we have we've got tickets to Beast Mode competition. We've got tickets to Western Hunt Fest. There, and all kinds of gear that's going to be on there, man, is just, Hoot has camo on there. I just don't, I'm trying to keep everybody in my head here. I'm sorry if I missed one of them, but y'all, you can go to our website. You can go to elkbros.com/hunt2023, and you will see all the packages on there. You'll see everything you need to be able to get into this giveaway. But listen, you have 1 week to get in for this opportunity, man. And we are going to be revealing tonight how we're going to select those people, because we're going to do a small giveaway tonight, and you'll be able to see our selection process. Okay?
Sweet.
Why don't you take us on to the ElkBros Mailbox, bro?
Banano, you want to lead us on here to the ElkBros Mailbox?
We got a question from Mr. Richard Williamson from Kentucky. What would be the easiest mouth read elk call for me to learn with? I can use turkey calls pretty well, but I'm not crazy about reed calls in my mouth. So this is a great question for me. I think I believe Joe assigned this question because I'm not a good caller. So in my opinion, the easiest reed call I ever tried before is the Sugar. Go to elkbros.com and buy one of those. It's pretty friendly as far as low pitch or cow calls will be a great, an amazing way to go. And if you like Hoochie Mama, that would work as well.
But he said, what's the easiest mouth
he's
read
asking
elk call?
specifically.
But but reed calls, I would highly recommend it to go to the Sugar.
In definitely not to completely aside from being a sales pitch, honestly. I tried a few different ones, and there's different types. There's ones that come with the palette or the palette already kind of set up, and there's some that have that metal palette that you kind of have to adjust. The palette I learned with that white reed from Primos that had the metal adjustable palette, and it's always hard to kind of get it adjusted just right. And it takes a while. So if you're learning, it's hard to tell whether or not you're making the right sound or how to adjust it, whether you have to, tighten it up or open it up. It's difficult. Plus the shape and the mouth, you may have to cut it. So, then when we were at camp, you brought not only the Sugar for us to try them, but you brought the grinder, and the grinder I felt was super easy to get the right sound, like almost two bugles right after two bugles. The first time you can kind of get a good cow call, but then you throw a couple bugles on it, and it almost like it adjusts itself, and then it just makes really good sounds. So
I felt the same with the Sugar. It was
So I think
pretty quick.
Yeah, I think for starting out, those two are really good to kind of play with because those will give you kind of the sound that you need right off the bat. And then you don't get frustrated and just trying to play it over and over and over while trying to adjust the reed while you don't fully know how to use them. So, yeah, I'm with Manano on that. Like, and it's not a shameless plug. It's honest truth. Yeah.
And I echo their sentiments for sure. But also I would like, I'd be remiss if I didn't put Mark Carlton and Native by Carlton up there as well. His new call that's the Rip It, is it 1.5, Joe? Rip It 1.5?
Yeah, but his new lineup that he has, where he's come out with these new frames and stuff.
Yeah.
The Rip It series, it's a whole different series, and
Right.
he's done some stuff with some
They're phenomenal.
latexes that are just fantastic and
so easy to blow.
and
Especially the smaller one that he's built. Man, it's super easy. You pop that thing in, it fits really good. And I don't have a real big palette, so it fits really good. So what I would tell Mr. Williamson is I'd get a few of them, get a few Native by Carlton, get a couple of Wapiti River calls and see which one best fits you. And then, man, he makes Native by Carlton makes an external call that you can put in your mouth that's called the green weenie. Ooh, buddy. I'm telling you, that call has some whine to it like none other. And it sounds a lot like RC's hyper call that he uses quite a bit. And it's fantastic when you get them in tight.
And what I want to tell you too, Richard, is that, look, the easiest to do to learn with or anything is going to be a light latex. So anything with a single light latex, and you said you've already been talking with, you've been using turkey reeds. You might not like them because a turkey reed is generally a wide reed, a lot like what ours is, right? So you might want to try a medium frame, which we don't have. Carlton Calls has a medium frame. You can get any of those single latex calls from Rocky. You can get them from him. You can get them from Elk 101. You can get them from Phelps. You just want to go for the light single latex. Something that's going to be a cow and small bull type call for you to use. And what I would tell you is when you're trying to get your first sound, I would recommend going back to, we had a great podcast with Chavez.
Yes.
It was like 187 or 186. I think it was our third one of that one series that Chavez just did an incredible job. We all talked about it, how to basically use the call, and I think that's something to do. But when these guys talk about the easy ones to do with, the grinder that we do, if you're willing just to scream on it a little bit and not worry at first, just really let that air pressure come on it, hit that, get those bugles going, and then do the opposite of it for the cow calls. They are very easy to use. We've gone to seminars and we've gone to shoots, and we've taken little kids and people that have never called before. I got a buddy, Diego Otero, that he has his own company. He's called Main Beam Addiction. Diego had never even called on a call. Got one of our diaphragms, put it in his little mouth, and by the end of the day, this guy was singing, man, on that. So for a first timer. So that's just something for you to think about. But
my son had never blown a reed, Joe, and I give him a sugar, and I'm telling you, if I go in there and ask him to come in here and blow that call for you, you're going to be like, what? I mean, he literally has just been calling not that long. I mean, he did it for about 2 weeks and sounded fantastic, right?
yeah, that sugar, man, is, and here's what I mean. It's a very light latex. You can see it right here. It's really, really light. And this is made by Wapiti River. Now, one thing I like about this, and the reason it's easy to call with, are these notches, because these notches let this mouth tape form fit to your mouth so that you don't end up getting that big gag reflex like that. And you can actually go to Wapiti River Outdoors, and if you want an easy calling one, man, go to their Frolicker or anything like that that Travis has. He has a ton of calls on his site. Whatever you order from Travis is going to be shipped out from us. We're trying to help out so we don't have all these great charges from Canada, but you know, that's an option right there. So I hope that helps you out, man.
Chav, you're up next, brother.
Yeah, this is a long one. It comes from British Columbia, and it's from Mike Yastrimsky. I probably butchered that.
No, I think you did good.
No, I think you did good.
Yeah.
And he says, I live and hunt in the Peace region of British Columbia, close to Travis's neck of the woods. It is mostly flat ground covered with thick aspen and spruce. Spot and stalk is next to impossible because there are very few glassing locations that offer views. Because of the thick cover and little elevation differences, we usually must get quite close to bulls for them to respond. In early September, over the past few years, I keep running into a scenario that I am having trouble solving. Usually, just after first light, a bull or bulls will respond to a bugle or cow call with just a small growl. There is no high pitch tone or bugle sound to this growl. The first time I heard it, the bull was within 75 yards, and I thought a grizzly was going to charge out of the bush. It sounded more like a bear than bull elk. Recently, I have had hunting partners hear this growl and say that there is no way that the growl was a bull elk. The bulls don't respond to any calls but will growl on their own occasionally. They don't come to my calls or move away either. I try every call and bugling, chuckling sequence I have in the book, but can't fire them up. This year, I had 3 bulls doing this at one time all around us. My hunting partners just over 4 kilometers away had bulls screaming bugles at them during the same morning. I found it strange that the bulls around us were so lazy, whereas the bulls near my partners were going crazy. I'm assuming it has something to do with a hot cow, but wanted your input on the best sequence or strategy to get these bulls fired up, or at least curious enough to move in. This similar thing has happened to me about a half dozen times in the past few years, and it is one of the last elk hunting scenarios that constantly has me stumped. Like yourselves, I never want to waste an opportunity on a bull that gives away his position. Yeah, it would have been a good time to have Travis with us, but what's your take on that, guys?
So that growl.
Yeah.
This is early season.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was gonna
Hear it all the time.
Well, I was gonna say though, like I hadn't up until last year or the last season, I hadn't heard it as often as I did last year. Like it was almost like more common last year than it had been on our previous years that I know of. And I don't. It's kind of funny because sometimes, like elk have a certain tick every year, and every year is different.
Yeah. It's a button, right? Every year it's a different button. Right?
Every year is a different button, and it's almost like, well, what's the thing this year? Like there was that one year where the lost cow call was that button, right? And then there was the year where, and last year they were doing that growling, and it was just like how to respond to that, and that's a great question because I didn't know how to respond to that.
So
well. I was just wondering, are they growling because of the presence of bears?
No.
And in our case, were they growling because of the, we were in an area where there was a lot of human activity, not necessarily hunters, but just human activity.
Yeah. So if that growl is basically a bull early season that is telling another bull to stay away. He's being territorial. Mm-hmm. He's just like, stay away. And then when you stay off making calls and do what he's telling you to do, you're doing exactly what he's telling you to do. So there's only 2 options, and he actually mentioned them here.
He did. Yep, he did.
One thing is you actually have to go in on that bull and get in his dish, man. You got to go in on him. You got to start raking. You got to do a little bit of that
panting.
You got to do a little bit of growling and panning yourself.
Make him believe you got a hot cow in there with you.
Now, so Gilbert, that's number 2. That's exactly right. Because like the guy said, he said, my partner someplace else had bulls screaming, right? Because there had to been a cow in estrus.
That's right.
Well, that's your other option, is to be able to like get in there
parties.
and you just start off and, do that display stuff. Do something that shows that you got a cow. Or remember that time when all 4 of us got together and we put on a little party to make it sound like we had a hot cow? That's awesome. Something you can do is, get with your partners, get a good setup, and then start out light, escalate that up, sound like multiple bulls, make it sound like there's a hot cow, and get those bulls interested. Cow calls aren't going to do any good because they're not interested at that time, man. It's too early.
Yeah.
If it was a little bit later, they wouldn't be growling at you, right? Because their testosterone levels getting up. At that point, they're just being territorial, and they're just telling you, stay away. And if you just stay back there calling, you're doing exactly
what he wants.
So you got to go up and get in his dish, man. And you don't have to give yourself away with a bugle, a chuckle, anything like that. Now, sometimes just a chuckle, just a light chuckle might work with some display and raking and rolling some rocks and stuff like that. But I would absolutely, if that bull's telling me to stay away from him, I'm going to do just the opposite, and I'm going to make him put up or shut up. So if it's that thick, I'm going to go in making noise going into him. I'm going to start raking in his area, and I'm going to make some of those just little bit of threatening growls myself. And see if I can do that.
Make sure your wind's good when you're rolling up in there.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel though about the fact that he's saying that he was questioning whether it was a grizzly or actually a bull?
Because the grizzly would have come found him.
As soon as
that grizzly's hunting, he's hunting everything, right?
As soon as he started cow calling or anything like that bear would have come. It wouldn't have stayed in one place.
Right.
So you got a bull that's up there. He's bedded and he's in his lair, and he's saying, "This is mine, right here." Okay. You could even
it'd be interesting to know, Joe, if he was in a bedding area or if he was on the edge of a big opening or something like that. But I think, as Travis said, it's pretty thick where they are up there. And so I would think if he's, 75 yards and he can't see the bull, if I think he's 75 yards and I can't see him, well, I got to keep marching in there to him. And you might even bugle your way right to the middle of him, And again, I think you got 2 options. Either if you don't do anything, he ain't going to do anything, because that's exactly what he wants you to do. Stay away,
Absolutely.
with that growl. And we've heard a bunch of them, man. I mean, Joe and I, sometimes Joe doesn't hear them because they're just a little bit lighter growl, but I'll hear a bull go, and that's it. And I'm like, man, I said, that's that growler bull, but he's just telling you to stay away. And like Joe said, one time Joe and I and Chav found some, I don't know, it was like 4 bulls, and we started, cow calling. Them bulls didn't even pay no attention to us. Like they could care less that we were cow calling and everything. So then we went straight into a scenario where there was a bull bugling, hot cows, calves, the whole 9 yards. And them bulls were like, oh, hey, man, there's a herd of elk up here. We're going to go check it out, right? So those 2 scenarios, I think, are the best ones, like Joe said, for him. Either get in his kitchen and get right in there with him, displaying and letting him know you're coming, or make like you got your own party going on.
You have 2 options, because if people would have listened to Travis that's hunted that, Travis knows these certain lairs where these bulls like to stay. That's kind of their place they want to stay. So one thing that you can do is just go up and get in there, move into it, and just give that little light chuckle that, hey, you're in his spot, and see if he defends it. If you then hear that growl and that bull's just staying in a place and he's telling you to stay away from him, and he doesn't move in on you, then you've got 2 options. And that option is to make him be defensive, or to make him think there is a hot cow in the area with other bulls and pull that interest, man. You know, get him to work up a little bit. But when you do that, you don't want to start cow calling and bugling at that bull. You're not trying to engage that bull. You're painting your own picture, and you can't do it fast, man. You've got to work it up. You've got to start out slow. You've got to have that, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like that foreplay that happens in there, man.
Yeah, man, that romance
stuff. And you got to work it up, and then you got to get that bull to start feeling it and start hearing it, and then gradually pull him into what you're doing, man. You know, have fun with it, like Travis says, man. We say that all the time, and you know,
and be ready, because he'll come in silent.
Yes, sir.
He won't say a word, but he'll just appear, man.
Yep.
So be ready.
Better be ready. All right, cool.
Well, guys, you know what time it is. It's time for our Elk Bros shout-outs. If you're new to our show, this is just shout-out to our followers and a few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week, Joe.
Yeah, first, we're going to reward some reviewers.
Yay!
For those folks that leave us a review, listen, guys. When I say guys, guys and gals that leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or give us a comment on our YouTube channel, you have to include your name and where you are from to get on this list. We are then placing your names on our Elk Bros. This is new. The Elk Bros Spin a Winner Wheel.
Spin a winner wheel. I like it.
Tonight we're going to spin for a winner for both a Wapiti River and a signature Elk Bros diaphragm call. So here it is, y'all. Let me show you guys the Elk Bros Spin a Winner Wheel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enlarge this puppy. And we got people, we got Chris McKelvey, we got Timothy Welch, Tom Roth, Albert Guy, Casey Gamble, Randy from Santa Fe, Derek Squires out of Mississippi, Bill Steiger, he's in Oregon, Jason Schultz, Keith Durr, John Waldron, John Child from Layton, Utah, Dan, Justin Gotham over in Maupin, Oregon, Rob Greer in Ontario, Kevin Kretzer and Scott Schwab, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Schwab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enlarge this thing, and you guys can go on our YouTube channel if you want to see. The names are actually on the wheel. You're going to be able to see this happen, and here we go for the spin. This is for a Wapiti River and an Elk Bros diaphragm call, going to be sent out to whoever this is. And it's spinning.
And the
Could it
winner
be
is
Dan? Could it be Kevin? Timothy going by?
Tom Roth.
Could it be?
Oh, sorry, Tom.
Oh,
dude, did I call it? Oh, man.
Albert Guy out of Hiram, Georgia.
That's so cool, Mr. Guy. Sorry, Tom, got a little quick on the draw, brother.
Draw there.
It looked like it was going to be Tom Roth, and it just
The bearings were just working really good, and it kept spinning.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Albert Guy.
Albert Guy. Congrats, Mr. Guy.
Yep. Well, you've got some stuff coming your way, man.
Yeah, let's get to the shout-outs. Luis, you want to...
This week's top listening city has a total land area of 25.9 square miles and is home to over 1,400 local, national, and international companies. It has the largest oil refinery in the Rocky Mountain region, but still offers its citizens 840 acres of parks and open space. This is Commerce City, Colorado.
Commerce City. I would have thought that was in Texas the way that was going, man.
Yeah.
For the Rocky Mountain.
Right, Rocky Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Luis, you did that so good, man. I'm not even going to have to speed you up this week.
Hey. I'm coming up in this world, man. Yeah, good luck with Manano.
I got an easy one. There's no beaches.
It's gonna be like, today we're gonna talk about.
We got to give Commerce City, Colorado the go. Chavez.
Okay, this city is the largest northernmost metropolis in North America and is the ultimate gateway to Canada's wild, adventurous boreal landscapes. The city is located on the North Saskatchewan River and is one of Canada's fastest growing cities. And this is in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Edmonton, here we
We're gonna
go.
be,
Here
we're
we
gonna
go.
be close
Yeah,
there.
baby.
Yep. Here we go.
That's
Yeah.
where Travis was just there. Or was it a week or 2 weeks ago? Well, by the
Yeah.
time this comes out, it'll probably be 3 weeks or so.
Is that where he had his show?
Yeah, he was up there for a show, man, at Edmonton, and did a seminar up there. So Wapiti River's already been there.
Right.
Is your
Next
turn.
up. I'm really close to this city, Joe, right now.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Called the
absolutely. Super
balloon.
close.
Yeah.
it
Called the
called?
balloon capital of Texas.
Wait,
And
what was that
headquarter-
word, bro?
Balloon.
It's okay. Balloon,
Right.
balloon.
Called the balloon capital of Texas and
Uh-huh.
headquarters to the Frito-Lays. This city was named after the Spanish name for flat. It hosts a popular hot air balloon festival in September. In 2023, this city was ranked the third best city in America to raise a family. This is not other than Plano, Texas.
Plano,
Plano.
Texas.
Texas.
So,
And
have
in
you guys-
Spanish, it's pronounced plano.
Plano.
Right, Plano, yeah. I
Plano.
can't
Guys,
tell you how
being
many
flat.
softball games I've played in Plano right
Right.
there. Crazy.
I'm in Prosper. I'm
Yeah, just
probably
north
20 minutes away, 25 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, man, I did that hot air balloon stuff. I'm not a fan, dude. I don't think I'll ever want to get on one of those things, man.
Yeah.
I saw on the internet the other day one that got burned on the on the pyramids in Mexico, man. The thing got burned and people die. I mean, they kind of fell from the top. It was
Yeah, it was horrible.
worst nightmare, man.
Yeah,
I
it
would
was
Mexican.
really ugly, bro.
I will never get on a hot air balloon, dude.
Luis, dude, man, I don't know. Have you ever seen some of these airplane crashes and stuff? But you still get on an airplane, dude.
Oh, but this is different,
I mean, there is
Joe.
at least some sense of control with the airplanes. With the balloon, all you have is like a little lever.
Oh yeah,
You go up
sense
and
of
down, and
control.
whatever the wind
What
takes you.
kind
It's
of
like,
what kind
No,
of
man.
control do you have in the inside an
You got
airplane?
all the control in the world till
You
you
have
get to the
another
crash
when
site.
things start to go bad. That's all
Right.
you control. man.
Right.
oh no,
All the
man.
control in the world till you get to the scene of the crash. And that's
No,
gonna
you don't
be
have
a
any
sudden
kind of
stop.
control.
Let me tell you what, a hot air balloon flight is one of the most beautiful things, and you don't even know you're moving.
I'm out.
Good for you.
I'm out, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe can keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Ain't getting no hot air balloon.
I
ain't
don't like it.
jumping out of no perfectly good plane. No.
Oh, it's silent. It's
I
quiet.
wouldn't even get on a hot air balloon with a parachute.
No, because
I might do that. I might do that, but I don't know how to operate one. So when I come out, I'm
Well, it's
boom.
gotta be a big old parachute for
It
you.
would
bro.
have to be a big one. Yeah. Omar the
Size
tent
of the
maker
hot air
have to make-
balloon.
Yeah. Omar the tent maker, I have to make that daggum parachute for me, brother.
What's
Um,
that?
Mafia T-shirts is going to have a hot air balloon on the back.
In beta, with
And
beta jumping.
And a big X on it.
Yeah. big-
Right.
And underneath it, we're going to have big baby on a big baby.
Yeah.
We definitely
right,
gonna have
fellas.
some sort of Beto's faces there. I don't know, something like that.
The landing site.
You know that, Beto.
I do, for sure.
Right.
Fellas, this next city is named after the Tatsgani Native American tribe that once inhabited the area. The Clatsgani River runs through the middle of town and empties into the Columbia River 4 miles away. At an elevation of 105 feet, it has a warmer summer Mediterranean climate. The town is known as an arts community in Clatsgani, Oregon.
Wow, man. Very cool.
That's Connie.
Very cool.
And
Is that where I may be going?
all I know is there was a lot of Scanies going on there.
Yeah, lots of Connies. Lots of Connies. Clatsgani. Y'all tried to jack me
Yes,
up, Joe.
Connie.
Yeah, he did. He did.
And probably saying it totally wrong. So we need you guys to correct us and send it in, man.
Yeah, but I faded it like a good steward, man. Like I
You
never
did good.
pulled off.
You did good. Especially
What
that
they
first
say,
tip
fake it till you
scanning.
make it. Got it.
Yeah.
So let's rock and roll. Time for people to actually learn something tonight, man.
Absolutely.
Main content. The main topic for the show actually came from an incredible set of questions from one of our listeners. It was Don out of Seattle, Washington. Most of these questions came from Don, but since we came on tonight and we had some of those, I even added a couple to round out the conversation. So last week we started with the first question he had, and that was on how do you decide between moving and calling or setting up and doing a scenario. So if you want to learn about that, listen to the last podcast that we had. For this week, we have a whole set of questions, and we're all going to kind of go through these and hit you and see what we have here, man. So who wants to be up first?
Yeah, I'll go and I mean, obviously, if you do have to do scenario,
Mhm.
that's the biggest question. Which scenario would you do? You know, which one would you do first? What kind of scenario would you decide to do if you need to do a scenario? And there's so many ifs to that question, so many variables, though.
Well, I need the backstory. You know, what are we looking at? You know, why would I need to do a scenario if I don't have anything playing?
All right. So let's talk about this, because really it has a lot to do with what mode the animals are in, right? It has to
Exactly.
do with what mode the elk are in at the time, which can also deal with, is it pre-rut? Is it rut transition? Is it rut, or if it's post-rut, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you this, man. Understand, and I hope people understand there's a difference between scenarios and just calling. Like, for example, when I'm cast calling, I'm always a lover before a fighter, so I'm generally doing cow calls all the time. But if you're talking pre-rut, them cow calls don't do you a whole lot of good. But that doesn't mean you can't use them, because really, like Luis, I want you to remember, we hit the bulls really, really early. I think it was 2020, right? Might have been 2019. You had gone out because you had already killed, and you went out to do some separate from the group, and you came across about 6 bulls. What kind of noises were they making, bro?
It was like mew,
Exactly.
Growls, mews.
It was mews, right?
and they were sparring.
And wasn't it light mews?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, yeah, and they were sparring. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the point I want to make with that is early season, just because you're using mews doesn't mean that they're necessarily cow mews. Okay? There's a lot of times, like if you think about early season, think about the time that you and Tucker were with me, walking through, we're moving along through a transition area. And what I mean by transition is we were going directly across areas where I figured they could have been down lower in the feed, moving up higher to the bed. And we're going through the middle part of it. Remember?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And we're in thick, thick oak brush. And that's one thing about that earlier question that we heard when we were talking. What was his name on that earlier question that we had there? That would have been, Mike Yastrzemski. The area that he was talking about was that thick cover. That's like my favorite cover.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now you can move through, and all I'm doing is, yeah, just like that. And people can go, well, that's cow calling. What good is that? No, not always, man. It can be a bull mewing.
Mew. Yep.
Yeah.
Early season.
Early season.
It happened. It happened to us last season, right, Luis?
Yeah.
The very first day,
Yes.
the bull cow call. Actually, it was a mew, but he muted.
Oh,
Bull mew.
I call it a bow call.
Bow call. Yeah. Bow call.
Like so.
Bull mew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bull mew.
But then after Luis bugle, he responded with a bugle.
Sure. Because it's bulls interested in bulls in that early season. So when you're talking about doing a scenario during that early season there, you're wanting to do something that's going to attract bulls. So during that time, it's display type stuff. So what type of things are displaying? Raking is one of the best things. Add a mew to it, because, or you can even get actual pieces of antler and do some rattling, man. So I want to do a scenario where I've got 2, maybe 3 young bulls together that are displaying, maybe
Sparring.
sparring,
Yeah.
doing a couple of mews like that. That's the type of scenario I want to do. That's what I'm gonna select because that's the time of year and that's how they're feeling.
Right.
Now, if I give a cow call out and I get a bull that comes back to me with a type of advertising bugle, or comes back with a location bugle, or a bugle that says "Here I am," now that's a little bit different.
Sure.
You know? First of all, I'm engaged with that bull, right? So if I'm engaged with that bull, I don't necessarily need to do a scenario. I might be able to call that bull in. If that bull stays put up there and only gave me that one talk, now I can do a scenario. And if he responded to a cow, maybe I can do a type of introduce, just work that cow a little bit, just do like a little bit of a cow party that we do, right?
Yep.
Okay. We could do that. Just sound like a group of cows and see if he's going to come into that. We've done that before, right?
Oh, yeah.
So think of some of the scenarios that we've done, guys,
Oh, man.
and when
ton.
and why we did them.
A lot of them are that early season stuff where, we're just casting calls out and letting them marinate. The big thing, man, is it's crucial that you take your time, especially early season, throwing them out there and then raking, the panting, glunking, all of those things. Anytime you hear a bull glunking, he's got a hot cow around him, right? So those are the types of things that you want to do for displaying, raking a tree, doing some panting, some soft mews, things like that to get other bulls think that there's another bull there, right?
With a cow
Especially if
or-
it's or other cows. And I mean, you can have herd talk going on the whole time where you introduce a few cows, a calf, or the one that really worked for us a few years back, and it worked for me this past year, was the lost cow call.
Now,
And
now, when you're doing that, though, bro, are you doing a scenario or are you directly engaging a bull?
no, I was just doing a scenario.
Okay.
And once I got eyes on the bull, then I used the lost cow call if he hangs up or anything like that. And another thing that really worked well last year was a real soft chuckle, right? Especially when we got eyes on the bull. Actually turned that bull around from leaving and brought him right back, right? So once they feel like they're missing out on another bull being there or some other cows, they're gonna try. Elk are curious, man. They're curious animals. They want to be in the party, and especially those younger bulls, man. I think your bigger herd bulls and everything, they're probably a little bit less likely to be persuaded unless they're with a bunch of other bulls, right? But I think those younger bulls are ripe for the picking early on.
But how do you decide on what scenario to do? Is you got to think about what's going on, what those elk are wanting at that time. So if it is
What time of
pre-rut, it's bulls being involved with bulls. If it is rut transition, what I mean by rut transition, that's when now those younger bulls are seeking out the cows. They're starting to herd them up. The older bulls are going out into the wings, letting those younger bulls do that. So since that is happening, think about that, man. Now you can actually do things to bring in some of those bulls. Now you can use things like a situation where you've got maybe a love straighted bull, or you've got a situation,
Slow pay.
a type of breeding sequence, or you can do a cow party just to pull some of those bulls in. Then as you're getting to the rut, now you got bulls that are now cowed up with a whole bunch of satellites. So now you got to think about, okay, am I trying to pull in the satellites or am I trying to get to the herd bull?
Herd
If I'm
bull.
trying to get to the satellites, well, I'd better sound like something that's going to pull them to me, which is going to be basically cows that are going to be offered, but you got to be something different than what's out there. You got to be a hot one, which means now you got to introduce a cow that's hot, that's in estrus, and the way you know that is by other bulls that are now singing right around that cow. So you can do a little bit what we call a rut fest for something like that to make it sound like there's a whole bunch of cows with some bulls there that maybe that guy could come and pull one off. Or if I'm trying to get that herd bull, man, I don't know that I can pull him unless I get in amongst them or I try to pull the cows. And if
Get
I'm going to
between
pull
him
the
and his
cows
cows.
to me, Now I got to sound like a scenario of a bigger herd bull.
Batter bull.
Yeah, right. That's coming
Yep.
in, you know.
Uh,
I think one of my favorite scenarios is the slow play deal that, Paul Medell and them talk about, especially when you got a bull that's talking to you and he's kind of hung up. I think that's the coolest thing. And we've done it several times, Joe, where they kind of hang up, and heck, we've even given up on them a couple times. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here they come because we were mimicking that slow play scenario, right?
We were doing that scenario before we ever knew it had a name, right?
Definitely.
So, but
and
it's-
what would you call a slow play? How would you define that?
So basically all a slow play is, man, is where it's like we mentioned before, you're starting with some cows and you're introducing a bull and you're trying to then go into like a breeding sequence. Whereas if you had a bull that was a little bit more escalated, you might just speed that breeding sequence up a little bit and then challenge that bull once that bull starts escalating. So the slow play, the whole idea of what Paul says as a slow play is to get that bull to get worked up because he's not there yet. He might be interested, but he's not worked up yet. So
And you're not talking to him.
Yeah, is to bring him in, right?
Yep.
And the way you're going to bring another bull into you is by doing breeding sounds. That's how you're going to do it. You're targeting a bull, right?
You're becoming a bull that has a hot cow, and you're not talking to the other bull. But as soon as that bull gets worked up and starts talking, you still don't talk to him. And once he comes in there and he'll give you that last big, short, like roundup type bugle that, he's cutting you off and here he comes. Then you can, you're going to kill him anyway. He's coming, right? And I've seen Joe do that several times, but we didn't call it that because that's not what we called it. I mean, the bull that he called in from freaking 3/4 of a mile away, that's exactly what that was. And then that bull was incensed. He could not help but try to find that cow that was hot and the other bulls that were up there with him, So he finally had enough of it, and he had to cover a lot of ground. He even went and got in a wallow and then come out of that wallow, crossed the barrier, up the side of a mountain. Okay, I'm serious. Bull walked up the side of a mountain to get to us. That's how well that scenario
And
works.
see, what we did though with that was we mixed a couple of scenarios. We kind of did a bull, basically a herd bull with a hot cow, making those sounds, making him sound love-strated, like he's following a cow in heat. And then we start to move that away from the target bull, and then come back with the scenario I call a cow pickle, right? So what that does is basically, since that bull is sounding off down there, it's a cow, giving that lost cow, like, hey, here I am, giving that lost cow going towards that bull now so that it becomes lower hanging fruit. So you can actually blend scenarios because it's dynamic according to what's happening there, right?
Yep.
Joe, quick question. With regards to scenarios, though, you mentioned the difference between scenarios and casting.
Right.
For what I've learned around you guys, I don't normally like the way I look at actually doing a scenario is there's two opportunities in which where I would do a scenario. One would be we're walking around, we're casting, we get a response, and then based on that response, then we do a scenario to potentially seal the deal. We get as close as possible to do a scenario to potentially seal the deal. That's one. Two is we're casting and nothing's happening. We're not listening to anything. And then, it's been a while and we decide to just kind of look for a place with good wind. And then we decide to say, okay, well, here goes nothing. Let's sit down. Let's do scenario. Let's really get loud. Let's escalate it slowly to see if we basically do a casting on steroids to see if we get a response at that point. And based on that response, then we decide what to do with the scenario. Does that kind of summarizes the kind of like
There's
what I've seen?
another one, I think.
Yes and no, bro, because like the one where you said you got an answer and we sat down and did a scenario. it's not necessarily, because when you get an answer, sometimes we're engaging with that
The
bull,
bull, yep,
and
that's
we're
right.
just acting like either a single cow, or we're sounding like just a bull with a cow at that, kind of at that bull. We're calling to bring that bull into us.
Yep.
Now, if that bull doesn't come in, or it's staying off, or it's on the other side of a fence, or
Right.
something like that, then
Now you
what
can
we
put the
do is,
scenario on.
instead of us
Correct.
doing calls towards it, we create our own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then we kind of make it sound like it's our own party. So he's like curious and trying to come in to see what's up. But at least, I mean, at that point, we're getting a response, and then we're deciding whether to pursue and continue the connection or to create a scenario.
Absolutely.
But and then the other scenario is the other time where we set up a scenario is like we're getting nothing,
Yep.
and here goes nothing. Let's
But
get
you-
loud. Let's
But
slowly.
you see signs,
Yeah.
a lot of signs.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're
You might be close to a wallow. You might be in a
Right.
pinch point. You might smell them. I mean, there are several reasons for that, for sure. I
Right.
mean, that's how RC and I called that bull in Colorado. We just didn't wait long enough. We just put on a huge. I mean, it sounded like a whole herd of elk being up there, right? And then 10 minutes later, here he comes walking in.
So I'll give you another example. One of our scenarios that we do is called the Be the Bull scenario, right? Because we're not having any action. The bulls aren't really talking. They're not doing a whole lot. But I know someplace there is a bull with a hot cow, and these elk don't know that. So if I start acting like a bull with cows, moving from the bottom up a ridge, and I'm doing my advertising as I'm going, throwing some cow calls out, I know that other elk in that area are going to hear it and start moving and zeroing in on that to where I'm going. So I actually pull them in and act like another bull and do the exact same things another bull does, right? If they sound off on me, then I just work into my position to make sure that I'm getting wind right and stuff like that. And then we go into another little love straighted bull or a little breeding sequence, still not engaging that bull till he gets close enough and he starts to scream to where an actual bull would tell him to stay away, right? So once he escalates to that point and I scream at him to stay away, then we're going to find out what's happening. Now, I can't, when I do that though, I can't do it to the level where I'm way bigger than what I'm hearing, or that bull is going to, he's going to stay.
Yeah, he's gonna be obedient.
Yeah, exactly. But how I know what scenario to use is according to what the time of year is, how those animals are responding, right? And what the situation is. And you're exactly right, Luis. If a bull sounds off in an area and he's up there on the side and he doesn't have cows, man, it's on. I'm doing a scenario. If he's gradually moving around, and I know that, I don't think that bull at this time, the way he's moving I think he's advertising and searching out, I can definitely pull him in. Now, if he keeps moving away from me, he's got cows, right?
Yeah.
So
That's what happened to me in Manano last year. With that bull over the ridge. We kept on just going after it, and he kept on moving away with the cows. That's the bull I believe you killed.
Yeah.
if I get a bull that gives me a lazy bed bugle, depending on what time of the year and what his voice is like, that could either be a bull that's bedded with one or two cows, or it's by itself. Now I'm just going to do that midday thing where I'm going to move in, get in position, get a setup, just listen for a while, and then just start now creating a little display breeding sequence myself just to get that bull up and walking over to me, man. So
Joe, for somebody new, is there something close to a one size fits all? Is there something that would work 80% of the time that they can start out with? Not knowing all the details.
Mimic them.
So if you're asking for a silver bullet, what I tell you is, okay, there's something that I'm always going to do is low, bold, frustrated type vocalizations, because to me, the most attractive thing to bring a bull in is another bull that sounds like he's got a cow with him and he's frustrated or he's tending. If you know those sounds, and it, you know, that's like when we talk about the Chav asked about the slow play. With the slow
A great
play
one.
type thing, I'm not doing any loud bugling, man. I'm
Right.
using all low vocalizations.
Yeah.
I'm using pants, I'm using glunks, I'm using raking of the tree, I'm rolling rocks. I might do a little bit of a whine. So that's going to be, let me grab this here a little bit. It's going to be more of a that type of stuff, man. I'm just going to, I might do that. And then I want to sound those kind of noises. I might give a little bit of a bugle, but I don't want to do that right now. Now, if a bull starts reacting to that and starts moving into me, then I'm still going to stay engaged with my cows, with my story, with my picture that I'm painting. And then once that bull gets to a point where he starts to try to call my cows away, now he is offending me, and I'm going to let him know and tell him to stay away. Okay.
Yep.
And so when you're asking about something that's going to work 80% of the time, I will tell you this, and here, I want everybody listening, I want you to hear this. In 36 years, 36 elk that I killed in 38 years, never used a lip ball. Never used a lip ball. I used some emotional sound bugles, never used a lip ball. And most of those elk died because of cow calls and then low vocalizations of bulls. Glunks,
Raking.
few pants, that's what killed those bulls. So I'm giving you what I think works beyond 80% of the time. Now,
Yeah.
can I add some things like, you know, can I
Breeding
use
sequence.
can I use some, what is it everybody else calls it? They call them regathering or assembly.
Yeah.
You know, which to me is almost like a lost cow or a lost
Yeah.
calf. I think that's incredibly effective. But I've even done things where if I have a group of elk that are moving up the side of the hill, I've even stayed parallel enough away from them, 100 yards or so, and sounded like another big bull with cows moving up a hill. And I've had success with that because I brought cows into me. But if you really want to know what works 80% and above, it's cow calls,
Yeah.
calf mews, and low vocalizations.
Yep.
Because another bull does not know what size bull is with that cow, and you're more likely to pull them into you.
And especially those younger bulls, they don't even need to know another bull's there. If they hear a cow party going on, they just want to be part of the
absolutely.
social gathering, man. You know, I love the cow party part of it. I've called in more bulls just by using small cow calls and being insistent with it, and they're sounding like a herd of cows being together. Those bulls got to come in there and see what's up.
Well,
You know?
especially, Gil, if we're doing it in that transition period when those young bulls are now starting to gather up cows,
Right, and look for them. That's right. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
all we got to do is sound like available cows, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm telling you, it was at times it was easy. You know, I've gotten to hunt not just with a bow, but I've gotten to hunt, you know, muzzle loader and stuff like that. And I mean, if you could just sound like a few cows gathering together, those bulls would dang near run over you to come see what was up, right? And it really just I'm like Joe. I'm gonna be a lover before I'm gonna be a fighter. If a bull and you know, dealing with satellite bulls versus herd bulls are different too in scenarios. So if you stick to the cow calls and the low whines, the raking of a tree, you're gonna get to those bulls that are curious, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it be a giant bull or be a young bull. Spikes too, man. If you're hunting in areas where spikes are legal, if you just sound like a lost cow, a spike will run you over when you get eyes on him. Huh,
Well,
Knox?
let me ask you a question, man. You guys are walking down the hallway of a hotel, and as you're walking, everybody's door's open. You hear a man talking as you're going by there. Okay, it's a man talking. You just walking by. I'm not that interested in engaging with another man. You know, I'm walking by and I hear a woman's voice and do that. Well, I'm still not going to look in there because that woman might be with another dude or something like that. You know, I'm just going to keep on moving like that. You know, but if
Well,
you're
you have to stop and check. You should stop.
Maybe so. But if you're walking and you start,
Lots of girlies.
yeah, man, I guarantee you're going to turn your head. You
Yeah.
know, it's a head turner, man.
For sure.
So you just got to get that thinking in there. And here's the other thing: when you're using those cow calls, it can't be.
Monotone.
Yeah.
Monotone, robotic.
Got to have some inflection.
It can't, that's
No
what
emotion.
everybody out there is doing, is sounding like a lone cow out there. And you
Hoochie
don't do
mama.
that. We're throwing different directions, different levels, different cows, and you know, young, old, long, short. We're throwing that talk out there so it's more realistic. I like to move through sounding like a group. If you're just going to be monotonous and the same, you're not going to get
Monotonous.
Monotonous.
not monotonous. No, I didn't say
Monotonous.
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 Banana.
It's about realism, man. The more you can make it sound like a group, the better it is.
Right.
Cool.
Yo, what's your favorite scenario? I'm gonna tell you right away what's mine. My favorite scenario is when I'm with Joe and Luis and we got the flying V and I disappear of your side and we got bulls coming, screaming, or even cow calling. That's and I got, you know, brush and thick back cover.
Once
That's
we
my
have a bull coming into us and we're in a partner group and we're like that,
Then
all
it's
I got to
about
do is
pushing
just keep
buttons.
the animal coming, right? So
Yeah.
my job as a
Right.
caller is just to move
Keep
back,
moving.
keep the ball rolling, keep the
Yeah.
animal coming, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm solo, it's a little different. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let me go to the next question is that he asked, and this was a great question, is what is the most critical part of a scenario? So I'm going to tell you this. There are a lot of people that call elk into themselves that either end up with a hung animal
Hung up. Yeah.
or end up with no shot
Set up.
because their setup
Sucks.
just isn't, they're not putting any consideration into their setup, man. So
I feel that anytime you put a call in your mouth and you make any kind of noise, you better be thinking
Ready.
about, you better have an arrow knocked. You better be thinking, well, if he comes from here, I'm going to have a shot. If he comes from there, you just got to be thinking all the time before you actually do
That's why
anything
they
with the
call
call.
him the
Absolute.
legend.
yeah, what'd you say, Jim?
I said that's why they call him the legend. You
Oh,
spit wisdom like that, y'all better redneckinize.
But look, I can remember so many times and being young in my career, I'm walking down a trail and I just
We
decide
still
to
remember
stop.
that, huh?
Oh,
It just-
yeah.
Wow. Good memory.
Oh. Yeah, you're there, bro. You're getting there.
Tough crowd, bro.
But I can remember throwing out a call without any consideration. I just like stopped and threw a call out without any consideration. You're standing in the sun and you're throwing it out because you're trying to get a response, and a doggone bull steps out of the trees and looks at you just standing there,
Broadside.
Yeah. You just, I mean, you're standing there with your heart in your hand, right?
Yeah. Or something else.
It is a family show, so I'm keeping it
My
family
bow. Joe.
Got your bow in your hand, nothing else. Oh. So if you're going to make a sound, man, you better be ready for an elk because that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, most critical part definitely is your setup, babe.
Yeah. If you're not set up so that you
And wind, but
recognize
that's part of the
where
setup.
that stop and scan
Range.
point is, and that stop and scan point isn't within your shooting range, then you're in trouble. Now, here's something that I always hear other people say that I've never done. Most people will call from a spot and know where that stop and scan spot is, and they will move up to it, right? I've never done that. And I know it's probably very successful, but all my calls have always gone behind me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So that my stop and scan spot is within my shooting range, so animals think I'm further back than what I am.
Right.
Okay. I've always,
Yeah, they're not as alert when they're walking through that stop and scan spot. They still think you a ways back behind them.
right. And that's because I'm calling solo, right?
Yeah, for real. Yep.
So the most critical part is your setup. You got to recognize. Okay.
And that setup's broke down, first with our wind, and then what our backdrop looks like. Again, y'all do not want to have a lot of stuff in front of you.
If you're setting up so that you can see an elk coming into you 80 yards, 90 yards, or 100 yards away,
That's a bad setup.
that's a horrible setup.
It is.
It's great for seeing out. It's horrible for killing.
Great with muzzleloader or rifle, but not real good with the bow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nope.
Yeah. I mean, you can say, man, I saw a big bull, but,
Yeah.
I would rather kill one, only see one and kill it,
Yeah.
than to see 10 that walked away from it.
Yeah, I've said this a million times. I could have killed every bull I've called in 100 yards with a rifle, and I mean some giant bulls. But again, I was hunting with a bow, and just my setup was wrong. I mean, got them doing what we wanted to do, but I just set up in the wrong spot to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody got any other question there?
Well, what part of the question he asked was if you have covered an area and didn't get a response, would you scratch that area off for the rest of the hunt? And I think a lot of it depends on how many days you have and whatnot. But if you scouted, area A, B, C, or D as your plan of attack, and they're miles apart, then leave that area and check the other areas out. But elk do roam quite a bit, so that area that didn't have, where you didn't get a response, 2 days later, it may be a hot area. So I think there's factors that are involved in that.
I think one of those factors you're talking about too, Chav, is sign.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, what kind of sign are you seeing before you scratch that off? If you've walked through there and spent a good while in that area, and you haven't seen any fresh sign, it might be time to move. But if you stepping in, fresh elk droppings, and you're smelling them, you're seeing trees blown up, maybe have a couple wallers that they've been to and they're dirtied up. I mean, they're
Maybe
in the
worth a
area.
check at a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just wait a couple of days and come back
If
to
I
it.
left every area I hunted because I didn't get a response, I would never hunt an area.
Yeah, we'd be all over. We'd have to go hunt.
So-
Be in China by now.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a small area. If your area is limited.
Yeah, especially if you're hunting early and elk are. Most people,
Very vocal.
they relate
Oh,
the response with a location bugle. And like you've already heard us talk about, there's growls that you might hear. There might be a
man.
light single chuckle.
Yeah.
You might hear one raking. You might not hear anything at all, but they're coming into you silent. There's all kinds of responses out there. So that's the thing you gotta.
There is. And Joe and I hunted a bull a few years back. It actually sounded like an orangutan in the woods. When he would never bugle, but he would sound. And it was. I looked at him, and he looked at me. I'm like, that is. What in the world is that? I'm thinking we're in the woods with the daggum orangutans, man.
When the first time Tucker and I, the first hunt with Joe, Tucker and I were hunting with Joe, and then Joe's like, "Did you guys hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah, but that's not a bull." I'm like, that sounded like a monkey, And Joe is like, that's a bull. Get ready. And I'm like, I'm looking at him and say, he pulling my leg. It's like, what the hell? I bet he's just messing with me. And like when I saw his eyes and like he was dead serious, I'm like, oh, I guess that's a bull. Because it sounded just like a monkey.
I had
I've
no
had
clue
hunters-
they could do that, man.
I've had hunters that I've guided that as we were moving, I would hear a group of cows,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And he's like, what? Cow elk. And he's like, he's looking around going, you don't hear that? And he's like, those birds? Honestly,
Yeah.
if you have not heard that before, a lot of people
Sure.
don't understand that those are cow elk making that noise, man. It sounds
Yeah.
like the bird chirps out there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The squeaky forest would do the same to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And some of
Oh,
those
yeah.
birds will sound like a cow
Yep,
call too.
there's some birds that
Yeah,
sound
there's
like
some birds. Yeah.
a cow or calf out there. But
Mhm.
the thing is, man, I don't scratch off an area unless I am not seeing sign, man. If I'm
Right.
going up trail, there's no fresh track. I'm cutting through those areas and those bedding areas. I'm not smelling elk anywhere. I haven't caught any whiffs. I'm not seeing any kind of track on the ground because where we hunted last year, we weren't finding droppings, man, because we were in that transition spot but we were finding fresh track. We knew the elk were moving through there, man.
Yeah.
So
They just weren't resonant there.
yeah, right. They just
weren't
weren't spending
bedding
time
in.
in that
There's
area.
a lot of activity.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. Human activity too.
And
that,
I think they
you know.
probably, there was enough old sign where they had been there summering. I think they summered there and probably as, they were coming out of that transition, they were moving out. And then we had the big blowdown scenario that went on that could have helped, move them as well. But yeah, Joe, I mean, I learned so much last year about, if you're in an area that doesn't have any sign or it's super old sign, that's a huge sign. Because when we moved into areas that had fresh sign, well, that was an even better huge sign, right? Because you found elk. It was tough, but man, we learned so much last year. And I think one of the other things that we learned that will go back into this question here, Joe, is do the different scenarios require different wait times? And I will say 100% yes, because certain scenarios you can get right in the middle of it and crack right on him, and other ones you want to take your time and let things marinate. And if you put a scenario on, I would say, depending on the scenario, but if you let's say you put a slow play on, you're working that bull for a minimum of 45 minutes, right? And even if you're doing your own thing where you're having a cow party and sounding like a bull, y'all, once you get done, man, you need to spend a good 45 minutes there, even up to an hour, in taking that time down so you can let those animals come to you. Because believe it or not, they've heard you from a long way off. And some bulls are just not full steam ahead, right? They're going to get there, but you got to give them time.
I think that if you get to the point where you actually set up to do a scenario, you gotta have a minimum of, like you said, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're
Well,
actually
depends.
set up, in my opinion. Because
It all
if you're
depends,
just walking
Luis.
and transitioning, and you're just you're just walking around. But if you decide to do the setup, then
Need to give it time. That's
you need
right.
to give it time.
Well, but it depends, Luis.
There you go.
Remember the last time where we were in with your bull? We heard the bugle. We literally ran down the hill. So and then you start
We weren't set
breaking
up.
in.
We weren't set up. So
Yeah,
by the time you decide to set up, you stay in that moment, and then the bull eventually came in. But that's what I'm saying. Once you decide to set up, and in my opinion, that's where you give it time.
And I would say in what you and Manano are talking about dynamic setup, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And not static. So when
Yeah.
you're in a static mode and you're sitting
Correct.
together,
I'm referring to the static setup when you decide to actually sit there and actually,
Banano's referring to a dynamic mode
Right.
where we are making
because
a move.
because you actually are watching the bull, or you're inside the bubble.
Right. That would take a lot less time to. You're right, Manano. That would take a lot less time to wait, right? And unless your wind was wrong or something like that, right?
Yeah, you gotta move.
But let's make sure people understand the difference, because we threw something out there that people kind of scratching their head: dynamic setup, static setup.
Yeah.
What we're saying with that is when you have a bull that responds to you and you're engaging and you're working and he's moving and you're moving up, you might set up because you think he's coming in, but now you hear he's moved off the side. So now you're going to move up and try to cut that space. Now you're going to a new setup spot. That's dynamic. It's always changing. And it's changing according to what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and what's happening.
Response you're getting from the bull.
Right.
Yeah, where a static setup is, I got in that spot, I have fresh scent on the ground, and I've got fresh crap right here. I'm just below this bedding area. It's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to statically set up and start a scenario because I have not engaged with something. I'm not sure. I think that animal's in that bedding area. It's exactly how I killed my bull last year, right? That was, I had actually followed to where I got fresh track going down into a thick bedding area, and I knew that they had to be in there, so I dropped down, got in position, started a static setup, and then did a scenario that brought that bull into me. Now, a static setup like that, if you get a bull that starts engaging with you, comes in and maybe goes off to the side, doesn't actually come into your static scenario there, it can now become dynamic, where you pull up, stakes and move on. But, you start out static trying to pull them in. So I just wanted people to understand the difference on that. One is intended to pull them in with a scenario. The other one is engaging and working a bull, right? When you're setting up.
That bull you called in for me in 2020, we ran down a hill to go get to him. Well, to go get to the pile of bulls that were down there, and you kind of set up a scenario where you're a bull and in cow calls as well, thinking that you're moving up, and this bull heard you and he came up the ridge and we shot him in that scenario. But that was not something we waited on. We actually ran down there in the middle of it.
It was really fast.
Verbal bulls.
Yeah, we were working verbal bulls.
Right.
The bull that me and RC killed in Colorado, we were actually in a static setup, right? We had sat by this wallow, and we put on several scenarios below that, and I believe that bull had been on us the whole morning. We just kept moving, and once we finally got to a good spot where that wallow was, we sat in there for, I don't know, it was probably at least 35 minutes after we got done with the scenario, and then here he shows up. That was a static
Beautiful wallow, though.
Well,
beautiful, absolutely.
And I want to tell people that our listeners, a lot of you people out there already have been doing some scenarios without knowing it, because if you've been doing our call casting as you've been moving and sounding like a moving herd, like a herd of cows, that is a scenario. Right? It like when I do my Be the Bull, you could actually be the cows, right? When you're moving up to bed, and then you do something like what Manano and Luis did. You're cast calling, sounding like a group. You're doing your little, chirps, mews, and everything, sounding like a group as you move, and all of a sudden somebody has to take a dump. Now you stop. You've been making those sounds moving up the whole time while elk are actually moving into you, but you're moving, so they're not getting a chance to catch up. You stop to take a dump, and next thing you know, you hear and there's the elk coming in on you that were following.
Unfamiliar to me.
They caught up.
Yeah. So you were actually doing a scenario. You were not engaged with anything. And it wasn't a static setup. It was more of a dynamic moving scenario to bring elk into you, because you were doing what elk do.
Yeah.
If I could get any point across to you guys as you're listening, you don't have to sit on a rock and make a sound. Think about what the elk are doing that time of year, mimic it, make it attractive to other elk to come into you, right? And then there's times, and even Manano has told me, Joe, let's just stop and listen for a second, because we had been moving all that time, sounding like elk, and he has come to realize through his dump crusades that
If we just slow down a minute, things will happen.
things will happen, right?
I can't stress enough how much importance it is to slow down.
Yeah, listen to the woods, bro.
And
That's
listen,
the key.
man. And look, they don't. They're big animals, and they just sometimes don't make a lot of noise coming through the woods.
Right. They
do. You got to be vigilant in looking for them. I'm telling you, Tom Roth this year had no clue that bull was coming up his 6, right? And I'm like, oh man, don't move. There's a bull coming in. Don't move, you know. And and he did it twice. The bull came in twice like that, and he finally let Tom move. Tom was able to move and get inside of some cover, and that's how we ended up killing that bull. But again, you know, we were in a static situation. We didn't have a whole lot of country to hunt, and we were in a situation where it was really crappy weather. We were just going to cast out some calls and let them marinate. Sound like a few elk over in this little corner of the property. And before you know it, we got one curious, right? And when he bailed off of that hill and stopped, he was looking around like, all right, I heard him over here. Where's he at?
Yeah.
You know, where in the world are they? He didn't see what he wanted to see. He decided he's going to peel off again and go away. And I hit him with a little bitty chuckle. Dude, that was it. He locked up, and here he come. I said, get ready. You're going to kill him right here. I said, get ready. I said, when I tell you to draw, draw. And that bull walked in there, and I said, draw. And I, just kind of screamed a bugle in the draw, and he turned and looked. I mean, one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen. 40 yards on the money, Jack. And but we'd have never got that bull killed if we would have just done nothing, let him run out of our life, but you can appeal to these elks herd mentality by speaking the language and making it sound like there are other elk over there. They don't necessarily have to see it if they really believe that there are other elk over there.
My favorite scenario to do is really that tending or love straighted bull. That's kind of my favorite one to do, because I can move through like that, and I know if another bull hears that, they're going to want to come into it, right? Especially in the right time of year, right?
Definitely.
If I have bulls with cows that are moving up and other bulls are following them, then I want to sound like that to pull a bull off to come in, because they're just gonna come in either trying to take that cow away from me, or they're gonna come in to measure me up first to see if that's a possibility. So that's kind of my favorite one to do. And with that's going to be a lot of those, just a little bit of a chuckle, the glunks, that whining, panting, and just a few little cow calls there, and maybe even every now and then throw just a little, just a nice little, a cow that's being more assertive with that, saying, here I am, come on, that type of thing. People would call it an estrus mew.
Yeah.
But I call it, it's just that cow being assertive, demanding,
Yeah. Hey, Chav, how long do you think it took me to call from the time we set up? How long do you think it took us to call that bull in? I called him for you.
Well, which bull are you talking about?
The big bull.
That one.
The big bull.
Up on the
It
big
didn't really take that all that long. We got in his bubble, and he bugled, pretty loud, and we could hear him coming. It didn't take very long at all.
So he was being protective. He was being
Yeah.
But what else happened in that scenario, Chav? What else happened below us?
Well, another herd bull was coming up the hill, and they kind of converged almost.
The whole two herds collided.
Yeah. And we never heard him really. We heard like a distant bugle, and then all of a sudden, there he is. You know,
Yeah,
there's
he's
two
right.
big bulls in the same area.
He's right in the middle of us.
Yeah.
Again, but we were once that bull made his sound that he was turned around, we heard him going away from us all morning. And Jiminy Christmas, we done crawled to the top of that mountain. Well, we thought was the top. And then we really figured out after Chav put it on. we got
Nowhere near the
around.
top.
Yeah, we got set. It was a perfect setup too, man. We're right in the middle of these two trails converging, and but we had the right thing going on. He spoke the language to us. I bugled back at him, and then started cow calling, and he was incensed. And when y'all hear that pleading bugle, I mean, it's like. I mean, and they're moving closer. Y'all better get ready, because
You
it
ain't
is.
got to say a word either.
No, you don't have to say anything,
Shut
man. Yeah, just shut up. He is absolutely, and if the bull doesn't turn to the right, he steps on Chav at 10 feet, man. I mean, that's how close he was to Chav. Again, man, I can't tell you guys how much it you guys get around elk and listen to them, because you will understand what's their trips and their triggers. But when you see them in the wild and you get them up close, those are the things that really key you into, like Joe's talking about, these scenarios, right? They really want to be around one another, and if you play to that and be patient, they'll come in, man.
There's two things I'm going to leave everybody with, and we're going to close out, and we're going to save the rest of these for next time. All these questions on concerning
Solo.
partner and solo calling, we're going to come on that next time. But there's two things. People ask me why I am so successful, and I believe it comes down to two things: able to create encounters and efficient at closing the deal, right?
Yeah.
So with those things, those are the two areas y'all need to work on. And the way you create encounters is by speaking the language and understanding how to engage and when to do scenarios. How you become efficient at closing the deal is understanding setups, understanding what position to put yourself in, when to draw, how to draw, and being able to put it in the right spot. You know, understanding that animal and shooting in the best spot to put that animal down quick and fast. Once you feel that and you have those things and you understand ways to eliminate failure points, all of this is going to get better for you, and you're going to start putting animals down. You're going to walk into the woods knowing that that day, every day that you put that hand on the bow, you can put an animal down. And so
Absolutely.
Think about those things as you're listening to us, as you're studying, as you're learning from anybody. Become more efficient at closing the deal and understand how to create your opportunities, and you will raise all your percentages up at taking elk and harvesting.
Amen. For sure. Guys, I can't wait till next week, because then we're going to run into this partner and solo calling stuff. Another huge aspect of understanding scenarios and setups and stuff like that. So can't wait for next week's show. Guys, thanks so much for all of your questions. These are what drive us to help everybody get better. I mean, we even bring up things that we've forgotten as well when we jog back our memories of these scenarios that we've been in. And, we enjoy you guys being in elk camp with us every other week here. But if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate and review us. You got to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us, and you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And just a reminder, if any of our listeners would like their questions answered on our show, just send your questions to info@elkbros.com. That's info at elkbros.com. And guys, get in on the drawing. We got 1 week left. May 9th, midnight. It is the best odds of drawing a tag or winning a prize to come hunt with the Mafia and your boy here in South Texas chasing the big trailer. I mean, there's so many things in our giveaway, but man, again, the best odds in the world of drawing a New Mexico tag, way better than putting in that pool or even in the 10% pool. Come and hunt with us.
Come on.
Absolutely. And like we say here in the Lone Star State, husbands, kiss your wives, wives, kiss your husbands, keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry, and we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Yes, sir. And the next show is live. We're picking a winner.
That's the drawing,
Absolutely
right?
live.
Yeah,
We're going to pick a winner. That's right. And for all our grinders out there, we'd be remiss. Here's some more music from my brother Tony Wintrip to close out the show.
Let's do a little bullicious.
Had a wallow down a deep draw, surrounded by some brush. And every time I'd see the white tips get the Rocky Mountain rush, a constant swing of thermals had him sniffing up the wind. As the blood and sweat and tears of mine came rolling down my chin. I saw a monster with no shots to take, points on top like a garden rake, tracks as big as a Clydesdale on the run. And he talked trash to me while he ran away, and I'll be back to ruin his day when the elk gods come to call on malicious. And the temperatures start to drop, so I packed up ready to make my way up on the mountaintop. With a quiver full of 6 and 3 blades sharp and ready, my Hoyt was maxed out and all I had to do was hold her steady. Delicious was a man above a man. When he let the thunder roll, you could hear him all across the land. He was painted with a splash of mud, and he weighed more than $1,000. Now it's him and I at Timberline, and he's down to his last stand. Was a man above a man. When he let the thunder roll, you could hear him all across the land. He was painted with a splash of mud, and he weighed more than $1,000. Now it's him and I at Timberline, and he's down to his last stand. Slipped out on me one time and he left a few behind. So I followed up the trail where his eyes soon met mine.